Some of the biggest mistakes I made also led to the biggest transformations and biggest growth opportunities I've had. Not all mistakes are done to us, many of them are done for us. Hey, and welcome to the Full Weight of Joy podcast, the podcast for women who are done stressing about the weight of the world, of expectations and settling for status quo, and ready to step into the full weight of joy. Joy in the journey, whether up or down, joy through the life's challenges, and joy in loving your life right where you are, even though sometimes we feel like chucking it all and moving to Bali. It's for women who are ready to step into who God called them to be. He chose you to be in this world. He created you for a specific purpose. God called us to be the light on a hill, and by embracing who you are and whose you are, you can stand on that hill and shine. The best part, when you're standing next to another woman who's also on the journey, the world gets brighter. My name is Tami. I'm your host and a master certified life coach and a trained therapist. For over a decade, I've been helping women do just that. Step into who they're called to be and shine. Are you ready, friend, to start your journey? Let's do this. So last week, I go out of my office. It was just a normal day, and I go in. Every time I leave, I kind of get something to drink, and I do a check-in with the kids. And I saw Isaac sitting at his desk. Was like, "Hey, how is school going? How are things going? Do you need any help?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, don't you have training today?" Because he started a new job last week, probably about a week and a half ago now. And this day, typically he has set hours, 11 to 5. And this particular day, in the morning, he had a school event. So he wasn't going in until later. And it was a moment of, he's like, "Well, I don't have to go to work until 2." I was like, "Well, it's 2:10," and panic stricken in his eyes. And I was like, "Oh, it's 2:10." And so he rushes upstairs, and he's in his room, and I'm on the other side of the door. And I was like, "Okay, Isaac, while you're getting dressed, let me talk you through a few things." Because I know the first thing when we make a mistake is we want to justify, we want to make excuses, we want to throw responsibility to someone else. And with his new job, the job that this company values ownership, values responsibility, and values character. And I knew that this is a defining moment for him. And I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about today as I was, thinking about what should I talk about on this podcast? And I realized that I talk about the fact that we do fall often, but a lot of times I don't talk about what to do when you find that you took a misstep. What happens when you go in a direction and then you realized, "Oh, that was a mistake." Or you make a mistake, you're late to something, but it's something more than just that this mistake is, well, it hurts, right? So yeah, as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about mistakes that I have made. So that's going through my mind right now. And I wanted to talk about what we could do. 5 things we can do when we take the wrong direction, when we misstep. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because this is going to happen in life, in business, in parenting, in exercise, in like anything that you're trying, even if it's something that you're so familiar with, it can still happen. And a lot of times we see our mistakes or we see our missteps as like, "I wasn't cut out for this. It wasn't meant for me. I'm not worthy of this." This self-doubt creeps in. And I want to tell you to stop that. I want to tell you that as an Enneagram 1, I pride myself in doing things right. Not perfect, not in an arrogant way, but I research and I plan and I figure things out. And a lot of times things come naturally to me. And so when I do take the wrong step, it hurts. It hurts. And I really take it personally because I don't want to let people down. I don't want to, I don't want to let myself down. I planned. How did I not see this coming? And just like my son, he had great intentions, but it's like these moments actually build character more than the times that you succeed. I have learned more about myself, about my needs. I have learned more about perseverance and grit more by falling and going through trials and tribulations, by the transformation that happens after you fall. So the first thing, like, I just want to go through 5 things that we can do in order to, like, once we find ourselves in a position, and maybe it wasn't even a mistake, excuse me. Even if it wasn't a mistake, maybe it was maybe you went a direction you thought was right and you realized that I wasn't. There's several times that I've gone a direction and then I realized that that's not the direction I was supposed to go. In my car and in business and in parenting, like, it's happened multiple times. And I want to just encourage you that this is not the end. It's only the end if you don't get back up. And so I want to talk about, like, 5 things we can do. Okay. So these are things you can do right away. These are things that you can do in the moment. And in fact, the sooner you do this after your misstep, like, have your pity party for, give yourself 5 minutes to cry, to get upset, to be angry, to be frustrated, to, like, pretend like you're going to chuck it all and move to Bali, whatever you need to do. Take 5 minutes. Like, let's not forget to acknowledge the fact that it really does hurt. But then you get to decide, like, in this moment, you also get to decide, okay, who am I going to be? Am I going to be somebody who allows it to define me? Or am I going to realize that the calling that God's put on my life is stronger than any mistake that I can make? The gifts that God has given me are more ingrained in my heart and in my soul than this one mistake that I made. And yeah, even if it's several mistakes in a row, like, our God is big God. Our strengths are deep within us, and so this is a defining moment for you. And so get excited about that. And the first one I just want to talk to you about is reflect on the lessons. This is not a failure. It's a first attempt in learning. You're gaining information. You're gaining whether like, okay, that's not the right direction, or, oh, I really do need more information, or I need more skills, or I need more practice before I do this, or I need to get quiet with God longer and see which direction he wants me to go. Now, warning with that, just because you fall, just because it feels like you're going the wrong direction, doesn't mean you actually are. A lot of times just think about the wilderness. Like, they wandered. It should have taken them, I think, like, less than 2 weeks, and it took them 40 years. Sometimes God makes a circle until we learn our lesson, so that way we can move forward. So every lesson doesn't mean that you have to shift completely. And that's part of what I want to, like, talk about. But let's reflect on the lesson. What went well? What did you learn? We make these adjustments, and sometimes we just want to make drastic adjustments, but a lot of times it's just a tiny shift. So I want you to just take a moment and think about, okay, what do I want to take from it? Who do I need to be to overcome this? And what is possible now that I've learned this? Okay, those 3 questions, those are going to help you get out of your predicament, out of your own head a little bit, because there's times that I'm like, oh, I didn't even know the right direction to go in the first place. I needed to walk through this to get to the next level, to the next transformation, the next understanding of where God wanted me to be. So know that these lessons are not done to you. Sometimes they're done for you, and you can take something from everything, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. Like, you could take something from it if you choose to. And there are sometimes that it's just that I realize that I'm stubborn and I'm going to keep going, that I don't want to give up. There's times that I make mistakes that are so big, and then I'm like, okay, well, the one thing I do, the lesson I can take from this is that I don't want this to be the end. And that is huge. Okay. Number 2, revisit and realign with your why. We have talked about why it's important to understand the why behind the why, and even go deeper than that, and understanding, like, the core of what motivates you, what gets you up. And yes, it can be your family. However, a lot of times when you've had the first adversity, or your first misstep or misdirection, or first fall, you're like, okay, well, I can't I don't want to hurt my family, so I'm going to go a whole different way. Understand your why is deeper than just your family. It's teaching them something, it's showing them something, and know that your kids are watching when you fall. I realized that a few years ago, my son, he oh, what was it? Well, we were doing something and he made a comment. He's like, "Well, mom, will you never cry?" And I was like, "Honey, I'm a widow." Like, and I had 2 at this time, it was a 2 tweens, I think a teen and a tween. I was, like, on my own, and I'm like, I what do you mean by that?" I was like, "Tell me about it." He's like, "Yeah, well, you never cry." And I was like, I realized that they I would do my emotional work away from them when they're asleep. I would go to my closet. I would go to the pantry and I have my pantry treats in there that I hide just for myself. Typically, it's really good chocolate, like those chocolate that you only need like a bite of. Probably Belgium chocolate, if I'm really going to be honest, but it's hard to find good Belgium chocolate here in America. But but anyway, I realized that a lot of times if we have to show them. And so we had a conversation, we talked about that, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know we were," because he's like, "I didn't know that that's a way we can deal with things." I was like, "Absolutely. If you get so frustrated, you need to cry, like, or if you wanna cry, that's you do it." And I talked to him about how his dad was actually a bigger crier than I was. It just emotionally, he things affected him. That Enneagram 8 heart is so tender, and explain that to my son as well. Is like sometimes your dad would cry out of frustration, or out of happiness, but sometimes he was just hurt, and he didn't know where to go and didn't know what to do. And so we talked through that. And so my point is a lot of times when we are going through things, when our kids are watching to see how we handle it. And he thought sad things. He's like, "Well, if mom didn't cry, I don't need to." And I was like, "Oh, honey, I do cry. I didn't want to burden you guys with that, to carry that burden. Like I'm here to help and guide you. I didn't need you guys to take that cross and carry mine too." And he's like, "Oh, well, like we can still carry each other." So I was like, "You're absolutely right. Like that is very wise for," I believe he's about 14, when maybe 13 when we had that conversation. But it's when we align with the why. So when we do things, let our kids see. Talk to them about our mistakes. Talk to them about what happened and what went wrong. And a lot of times the kids don't see in my business world what went wrong because it's online that they're not online. Well, not in this capacity. They're not listening to podcasts or watching, like, reading blogs or, that kind of thing. But when we reconnect with our purpose and we go back to our why and we revisit and reflect on the lesson, and then we understand why we're doing this in the first place. Part of the reason why I do what I do is I know that you have a story to tell. I know that God called you to something, and those struggles and those trials and that expertise and that you have been developing over the last X amount of years. I know that there's a purpose for it. And I know that you can turn it into not only a fulfilling business, not only a legacy building, but also profitable and sustainable business. And I know that that's part of what I'm supposed to do, is help you not only come up with the concept, but get it started, help you push past the self-doubt. And that's knowing that when I fall, I think about you. I think about the fact that if I don't get up, then the message that God has given me to share with you, you won't hear. You may hear someone else talk about it, but you don't hear it the same way that God's put it on my heart. And I don't want to leave you hanging. I don't want you to miss what God has for you simply because I decided to allow a fall to hold me back from my purpose. So by revisiting and realigning with your why, get clear and really give yourself that moment to say, "Okay, Tami," or insert your name. "Okay, like I'm called to do this. It may be messy. Like I wasn't called to do this perfectly. I was called to be obedient and let God take care of the rest. So I'm going to take action." The next step is identify and own the mistake. Now, sometimes Sometimes we may not see exactly what went wrong, or we just went all in, but owning your portion is like, okay, well, I should have done this due diligence, or I should have learned this more, or I knew I shouldn't have talked to this crowd of people, that I should have been bold enough to talk to this crowd of people, or step out and, whatever your mistake is, or talk to like, if it's a parenting, like you can, like own the mistake you played, whether you knew that it was the right thing or not. Like there are some times that I know that I'm making a mistake as I'm making it. There's times that I know beforehand and I just can't stop myself. I just do it anyway. I don't know what. And then I just like, okay, Tami, like you knew not to do that and you still did it. Own it. Now, what did you learn from this time? So make sure you own the mistake. Avoid the temptation to don't blame it. Like you lose your power the moment you blame something else, because now you've lost all the ability to adapt and overcome. Once you've succumbed to the fact that you're at the mercy of other people or other things, and sometimes the mistakes that we make are catalysts from other things. But if you own your part and empower yourself, you can rise above that. So the next is ask for feedback and support. All right. So we don't have to do this alone. When I started talking about my mistakes with my coach, with business, when I started talking about my mistakes with my kids in parenting, when I talked about my mistakes with Kyle in my relationships, or my practice club with my girlfriends, with my friendships, man, talk about a freeing sensation. One is I could get the help that I need. I can get out of whatever mistake I was in. I can get out of it faster, because they either would be like, okay, well, what do you want to do about it? Or, I apologize. I ask for that support. Sometimes it's just someone saying, wow, that does suck. Like, I'm sorry, Tami, you went through that. I don't really know I don't have anything to tell you, but I'm here. And I was like, that's okay. I just needed to talk it through, because typically when I talk things through, when I start talking it out loud, that's when I get the answers. That's when I'm like, I see what I did. And so by getting feedback and support, realizing, excuse me, man, I have hiccups today, so I'm sorry about that. But realizing that when we have the support and we get this feedback, like take out the personal side of it. It's something you did. It's not who you are. When we start looking at who we are, that's when you get to decide, okay, who am I? Well, I'm someone who's going to overcome this. I'm someone who is, the habit that I had that I didn't do. Like this morning, I did not do my Bible study. And I was like, Tami, and I knew that threw off the rest of my day. And so I owned it. And then that getting that support but it's not who I am. I am someone who does my Bible studies because I love it, because it's part of who I am and who I want to be. And I want it to be a part of every aspect of my life. So when I realized that it's just a one time, it's not who I am. Like I'm not someone who skips this often. I'm able to readjust faster. But asking for feedback and support, it will alleviate, and they can show you a different perspective if you can't see one yourself. Like I was talking with my coach friend today, not today, it was a few days ago, but it was, we do this for each other and we laugh about it because it's so easy for me when she makes a mistake or when she is hard on herself to give her another perspective. And the same is for her, for me. Like it is almost instantaneous. Like it's instantly comes to our mind of like, here's another way to look at it. And it makes it like, okay, I'm not making excuses for it, but now if I look at it this way, I can learn my lesson and I can move on. So getting support and feedback through your mistakes is one way that it's so helpful when you do, because we all are going to make the mistakes. And so this last tip, trick, this last action step is I want you to actually create a new action plan. Get invigorated with, okay, this is what I need to do to get back on track. My Bible study is tonight. I'm actually going to do my Bible study because that way I can go to bed and be in integrity with myself because I did it, even though I didn't do it in the morning. And I want to do it in the morning. But my new action plan is I'm going to get it done. And then tonight I've been in the habit of putting my phone in the bathroom so I can still hear it when the alarm goes off, but I can't just turn it off. And so I actually have to get up to turn it off. And that's part of my action plan so that way tomorrow I can be more successful. But after like learning from the past, and it's like, what part do you want to take with you? What part do you need to, forgive and forget? What part was it? What part wasn't a mistake, or what do you want to like take from it? And then creating a new plan that incorporates everything you just learned. So if you want a direction and you're like, okay, that is not the right direction. Why? Then what information do we have now for the right direction? And again, we may still not know the right direction, but we're a little bit clearer, and we can keep acting and getting that clarity until we can go the right direction. But if you break it down and when you start looking at these things, like when you start looking at this plan, break it down into step by step, make it super easy for you and for your brain to say, oh, well, I can do that. So when we do that, and remember, incorporate those lessons that you've learned and incorporate this why, the need behind the need, the why behind the why, the purpose and calling that God has put on your heart. What aspect of it is still drawing you out, is drawing you to keep going? And then just take and really like 3 steps, 3 actions. Like, what 3 simple things can I do to get back on track? And if you do these, if you make this a regular habit of when you take a misstep, or when you go the wrong direction, when you make a mistake, when you fall, when you fail, when you get knocked down, if you take these 5 things, which I'll read them back to you. So it's like reflect on the lessons, not the failure. Revisit and realign with your why. Identify your own mistake. Take ownership for what your part is. Ask for feedback and support. And then create an action plan. When you do those, I almost guarantee, I'll say it, I will guarantee, because I'm looking at like, these are the things that I do, and I've been doing my whole life without even realizing the process. And in the last couple of years, as I've had this process and I intentionally go through each step, then like I've been able to go so much further. And the mistakes, I realize that they're for me and not against me. And that it may derail me for a moment, but it does not push me off the track. And I don't want you to go off the track. I don't want a little misstep to make you feel like you are not worthy of the calling God's given you, that you are not able to do what he's called you, that you have self-doubt, that it's not you that was called to do this. I know that God has put an important legacy in your heart. He's put an important mission and message in your heart. And if you're afraid of making mistakes, and so you don't get started, that's the regret you're going to feel. And I guarantee these mistakes you make are like, you can get over those a lot faster than the regret from not even starting. If God's called you to it, you best do it. And I just want you to know, that you have support. You have a place that you can come and say, okay, like, come, I will help you find a new perspective. I will help you turn it around and find the lesson in it. That is one of the things that I love doing most, is looking at things that don't seem to be for you and seeing how you can use it for good, how God intended it for good. Just like Joseph and his brothers, like, it was years before he realized how it wasn't his mistake, but his brothers, I mean, I think they realized it was a mistake, but it was used for good. And though I don't condone you selling your brother to slavery, I don't condone that, or I don't condone all of, that, the drasticness of it. Okay. Like, I'm just joking there, but I don't condone the drastic things that we do to like these mistakes, but sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes we have these stories, but those stories are what enrich our life. They're what make us who we are. These mistakes and these trials, they have shaped my heart and my life more than the good things. And so stop looking at them as if there's something done to you, and look at them as they're done for you. And then go through these 5 steps, rise above and get clear and get stronger than you were before. Because I know that it's in that I know that I know that I know that God's not done with you yet. So he can take every misstep and he can direct it for good. All right, friend. With that, I am so grateful that you are here. I'm so thankful that you listen. I am looking for if like input. If there are some topics that you want, I'm shifting a little bit. It's one of these things that, as you're growing and as you're evolving, God kind of shows you more and more and more of your direction. And again, I would not have this clarity if I didn't start. And if you look where I started and you look where I am now, it's like, Tami, that's a big leap. And then it's like, yeah, but it's a bunch of tiny little steps. It's like just tapping me into place into the direction God wants me to go. And I know that this is how he can do it for you too. So as I'm going, I want this podcast to be uplifting and to be edifying. And I want it to guide you on this journey and I want you to know that you're not alone on this journey. I want these things that happen, these missteps we take, they happen, but you're not alone. And so I want to build this to where that if something happened, you're like, okay, let me go and listen to these 5 steps because I made a mistake or I'm off course and I need to get back on course. These 5 simple steps will get you there. So if you have questions or if you have any ideas, if you want me to talk about anything on this podcast, reach out to me. Send me a DM on Instagram or on LinkedIn. I'm hanging out more on LinkedIn. I really enjoy it. And so if you're Instagram or LinkedIn, Facebook messages are a little bit weird. So I don't like that. It's harder for me to get to those than it is for Instagram or LinkedIn. But I cannot wait to connect with you and hear where you are and what steps you would like to take. And I'm excited about this journey. I'm excited for what this means for you as well. And as you're getting clear on what your purpose is, your calling, and as you see how it can be turned into a profitable business. I know that money is not your main goal. Impact is. I know that serving and helping others get out of whatever your mission is, you can teach on and guide that, or even if it's a physical product, like making soaps for allergies or things, whatever God's put on your heart, it's worth pursuing. And I want to help you. I want to give you the tools so that way you could take years I'm almost at 5 years of my business. And if I would have known these steps, it would have severely truncated my progress. And I could be where I am now, like 3 or 4 years ago. If I would have known these steps, and these are the ones that I want to walk you through. So if you want to start a profitable business and you want to make a big impact, you want to leave a legacy for your kids and the people around you, and you want to make waves for Jesus, like if you know that it's deep in your calling and deep in your knower that God's called you to this, let's do it together. Reach out to me. Again, LinkedIn, Tami Imlay on LinkedIn, at Tami Marie Coaching on Instagram, and let's do this. I've got the Vision Lab coming up this week. I am committed to getting you information this week because I have been writing it. I have been planning it. And it's like, well, now that I've done all of this work, I actually need to give you information so you can join me on this. I'm thinking 4 weeks. There might be a bonus 5th week because I'm so passionate about helping you discover and expand your vision. So to see what's possible, whether it's business, whether it's for your family, whether it's personal. But I know that that's one area that when I started expanding my vision, what became possible for me increased and changed and expanded. And I got clear and was able to see what God had for me when I started looking at through the lens of this vision of more, this vision of this abundance that God has for us. All right, friend. Well, I'm going to leave now. I'm going to close this down and I'm going to go and make dinner because hey, that's what we do when we wear multiple hats, right? So I will see you in a couple of days. Choose joy until joy chooses you. And if you want information about the Vision Lab, like stay tuned, but also like message me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And I'll see you over there. All right. Have a good day. Bye for now.